All right, hey guys, I'm back again at a kind of decent hour at night again. Wow, it's a record. But anyways, I'm here to go ahead and continue our discussion. This is our road to the Civil War. And last time we did talk about like a couple of the causes already. We talked about manifest destiny. We talked about the Mexican-American War and the Mexican Cession. We also talked about like what to do with that territory, and what came about was the Compromise 1850, which ended up having California come in as a free state, and in order to appease the South, there was a strengthened, more enforced fugitive slave law. So that kind of brings us into our point at this time. So we're looking at a map of the United States in 1850. And you could see the territory we have acquired already. We also discussed the Gadsden Purchase last time. So this little like light orange portion that says Mexico, that's the Gadsden Purchase. So we've already made that purchase by this point in time. Now let's fast forward to 1854. Pretty much the same kind of map. I mean, this is our territory in 1854. You could see, now we've divided up some of the Mexican Cession into the Utah Territory, New Mexico Territory. California has entered statehood. Wisconsin has become a state, but in the Wisconsin Territory, well, rather now the Minnesota Territory, we haven't carved out the state of Minnesota yet. Same with the Nebraska Territory, like we haven't carved out the state of Nebraska yet. Indian Territory is pretty much present-day Oklahoma. Kansas Territory will become part of Colorado and the state of Kansas. And then, of course, we got the Oregon Territory up top, which is going to become Washington State and Oregon State. So, the place in question that we're talking about today, or rather in 1854, is going to be the Kansas Territory. Because this territory right here has already got enough people to try to go towards statehood. But with the Mexican Cession, in the Compromise 1850, we gave the Mexican Cession this whole notion of popular sovereignty, which means that the people have the right to decide for themselves if they want slavery or if they want to enter as a free territory. So this whole idea is going to be applied to the Kansas Territory. But hold up now. Remember, in the Kansas Territory, rather this area that was the Louisiana Purchase, I thought we already decided that point, because the Missouri Compromise kind of decided that whole problem in this territory, because everything below the line would be slave, everything above the line would be free. But since then, we've had the Compromise 1850, which kind of blew out of the water this whole notion of that dividing line from the Missouri Compromise. So now we got to think of something else. And the person who's thinking of something else is Stephen Douglas. He's a Democratic senator from Illinois. And in 1854, he's going to introduce a bill that is going to reorganize those territories of Kansas and Nebraska. So, he's motivated because he is heavily invested in Western lands, and he knows that trying to do this for those areas will entice people to move over there. Plus, he has a big goal in mind politically. He wants to run for president someday. And he thinks by coming up with a bill that would publicly solve this issue would kind of propel him towards the White House. So, the bill in question is going to be the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And this is one thing where you kind of go in with good intentions and then it becomes a disaster. This is going to be one of the big catalysts that's going to propel us closer to the Civil War. Because, okay, the Civil War starts in 1861. We're less than 10 years out already, so let's see how the Kansas-Nebraska Act ends up becoming a huge fail. So, here goes. It's going to divide up the land west of Missouri into two territories, right? Kansas and Nebraska. We already established that. What Frederick Douglass wants, well, what Stephen Douglas wants to do, not Frederick Douglass, Stephen Douglas, okay, different dude. What Stephen Douglas wants to do is to push the notion of popular sovereignty into these two territories. Let the people decide. Sounds like a great idea, right? Let the people vote. Let the people decide. Wrong. Bad idea. And we'll see why in practice in that coming year. So, that's a big issue. Douglas thinks that by leaving the slavery issue up to the citizens of the territory, that he wouldn't really have to address this nationally. But here comes his opponent, Abraham Lincoln, also from Illinois, and they're kind of eyeing that same Senate seat. So, spoiler alert, there's going to be a big debate between the two of them about slavery. So, in essence, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the way it's designed right now, is totally going to get rid of that Missouri Compromise, okay? We already chipped away at it with the Compromise of 1850. Kansas-Nebraska Act is just going to, just throw it out of the water, okay? So, a lot of people are going to be kind of angry about this, especially abolitionists, because they're like, most of the territory in Kansas and Nebraska is above that line, so they should automatically be free. They wanted to keep the Missouri Compromise in that area. People, who support slavery were like, yeah, get rid of it. Let the people decide. Because seriously, guys, having the people decide this thing is going to be bad. Really bad. So anyways, President Pierce decides to sign this thing into law May 30th, 1854, and we're going to keep marching on forward. So, all right. People kind of thought this area of the Great Plains, was more like a desert. This is like flat land, hardly any trees kind of place. But now with new farming inventions, we had talked about some of these during the market revolution, the steel plow, the mechanical reaper, stuff like that is going to make it easier to farm in this area. It's going to make it easier to plow up that sod soil that they have and actually make it doable. So people are going to start coming on over to this territory. Also, some people thought that the native inhabitants of this area could easily be dealt with and removed. We're going to start to see the Plains Wars happen with Native Americans as we go forward into westward expansion. But for now, there's a lot of tension between the natives and the settlers. Plus, we have already had plans of developing the Transcontinental Railroad, and we want to go through this route in Kansas, the Kansas Territory in particular. So, organizing this area would benefit that future venture, and thus another reason to push the Kansas and Nebraska Act forward. And of course, Senator Stephen Douglas is like, yeah, if this thing is successful, then hello presidency. At least that's how he sees it in his eyes. So, if you're more of a visual person, we got visuals. Okay, you see here, there is the line we're referring to, the Missouri Compromise line, the 3630 parallel. Slavery is allowed underneath, slavery is not allowed on top. Okay, but remember, the Kansas-Nebraska Act gets rid of that, so now slavery could possibly be legal and doable on both sides of that line because of popular sovereignty, because of what the people decide. So, this act is really going to change some history here. I mean, we have now opened up that can of worms about slavery in the territories. I mean, yeah, the Mexican Cession did that, and so did the Compromise of 1850, but now it's like full blown out of the water, okay, because we've nuked the Missouri Compromise. So, yeah, everywhere is like game on for this. So, it's going to also be disaster because what happens with popular sovereignty? So, there's not really like strict rules on voting at this time. We don't have voter IDs, we won't have voter registration. Hell, I mean, birth certificates can easily be forged at this time. So, it's really easy to manipulate the votes at this time in history. And both sides know this. So, really, what's going to happen in Kansas in particular is that people from both sides of the aisle, pro-slavery and anti-slavery, are going to move into the Kansas territory just so they could vote on this issue. Pro-slavery people coming up from Missouri, anti-slavery people coming down from Iowa and like Illinois. And when you get two squads who hate each other in the same area, a war is going to break out. Fighting's going to break out. Like, pretty much Bleeding Kansas is going to be a mini civil war. It's the prequel. It's like the previews, okay? Political parties over this issue of the Kansas-Nebraska Act are going to realign along sectional lines. Remember how I was saying that last time, guys, with the presidential election? We would start to see that occur slowly but surely. Yeah, this is why. Okay? And then Democrats are going to start solidifying their stance on slavery, and more so, the Democratic Party is going to start to represent the Southern slave interest. Those who identified with the Democrats before are going to deflect into the newly formed Republican Party. And that was made up of like the Free Soilers and anti-slavery Whigs and anti-slavery Democrats. They're all going to like merge on together with the newly formed Republican Party. The Whig Party is going to start disappearing in the South. In the North, they take a fatal blow because they had opposed the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So, like we said, okay, Whig Party is going to like go away. The Republicans are going to emerge as the new party. So, yeah, this whole notion of Bleeding Kansas is just going to be just god-awful. I mean, you really do have, like, just the preview for the Civil War with this. Fighting breaks out, and we see fighting break out in places like Lawrence, Kansas, Compton. We see fighting break out in these areas, and we're not talking like, oh hey, fist fighting and yeah, you suck kind of thing. No, we're talking about like people actually getting shot in town, in their houses, like violence. I mean, totally violent. So, yeah, this is gonna be just a mess. A total mess. Because, you're gonna have two, like, seats of government in the Kansas territory. Topeka's gonna be, like, for the free soil. Compton's gonna be for more the slave style government. So, in Lawrence and Osawatomie, that's where you get the big conflicts, alright? So, the people here in Kansas at this time are very extreme on both sides, not just the slavery side, but the abolitionist side as well. John Brown is one of those extremists on the abolition side. He moved to Kansas with his 5 sons and their families, and they're going to actively engage in battle in Kansas. They are part of Bleeding Kansas. So they're involved in, like, the fighting that happens in Lawrence, Kansas, Potawatomi Creek. I mean, they're involved in both areas. So John Brown even loses one of his sons during all this. And he is going to become sort of a figurehead for the movement as far as more violent terms. And we're going to see John Brown pop up in a couple of years when he decides it's a great idea to raid a federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. This dude wants to straight up break into an army fort and steal weapons. Yeah. Extremist. Okay? But now the Kansas-Nebraska Act is a big fail. We've seen bleeding Kansas. The violence carries over even to the Senate. Here we go. Alright, the picture that you're seeing on your screen here is Charles Sumner. He is a hardcore abolitionist. Okay? This guy is one of these, what we will know of in the future as radical Republicans, who are very hell-bent on, civil rights and, like, ending slavery, and later on punishing the southern states for, their role in the Civil War, and really letting the old slaveholders, like, have it. And kind of rightfully so, because of what happens to him at this point in time in history. Now, this dude almost gets beaten to death in Congress by this guy right here, Preston Brooks from South Carolina. He is going to take his cane and beat down Senator Charles Sumner to the point where he almost dies. Beats him unconscious till he breaks his cane. I mean, this is like just the beat down of the century in Congress. This is what's going on. Last time we talked about, like, some dude, Senator Foote, pulling a gun on Senator Benton. And here we go. Now we got an actual beat down by Preston Brooks on Charles Sumner. Dude, not even Congress is being civil at this time. Yeah, we are headed towards war. Like, oh my god. Southerners are going to be like, yeah, beat his ass. Northerners are going to be like, what the hell's going on in Congress? Again, showing the rift happening along sectional lines. So let's fast forward to 1856. We got our last election before the Civil War. Well, rather, one of our last elections before the Civil War. Okay, got three people running here. We got Charles Fremont. We may remember him from, like, the Bear Flag Revolt in California, when California was like, yeah, let's get our independence during the Mexican-American War for like 2 minutes, and then, yeah, they become a state pretty soon thereafter. But anyways, that's Charles Fremont. He's running for the Republican Party. For the Democratic Party, we've got James Buchanan. We remember him from last time with the Oddston Manifesto. This guy was involved in that whole plot to try to, like, get Cuba from Spain. Alright, and then we've got former President Millard Fillmore running for the American Party, which is otherwise known as the Know Nothing Party. I know, guys. Just, we're gonna get to them. Alright, so first things first, Republican Party. Okay, we already talked about this. The Republican Party is the newly formed party. They are an extension of, like, the Free Soilers, in that they believe that slavery should not extend past where it is already. Okay? Not extend into the territories whatsoever. So this is made up of anti-slavery Democrats, anti-slavery Whigs, Free Soilers, those three combined, Republican Party. All right, so their dude, Fremont. Democrats, their dude, Buchanan. What he's running on is like, well, he doesn't want the federal government butting their business into slavery. He supports building the Transcontinental Railroad, so he kind of plays it like down the middle at that time. For real. Alright, and then, Lord, okay, let's just pull off the Band-Aid here. We got the Know Nothing Party. Alright, if there's a party that hates immigrants and everybody who is not white, not Anglo-Saxon, not Protestant, it's these guys. Okay, the American Party, otherwise known as the Know Nothing Party, is very anti-immigrant. When you're anti-immigrant, that means you're nativist. Okay, you know how racists are like anti, people of different races and ethnicities? Well, this is their counterpart for people who are not deemed as natural born citizens. Okay, so these guys hate immigrants, especially Catholic immigrants like the Germans and the Irish, right? Because these guys are like good old Protestant boys. So, these guys are going to be prevalent in the big cities out north, especially in New York, where you get high concentrations of immigrant population. So yeah, these guys are going to become a national party in 1845. And the whole notion behind the whole Know Nothing Party is because when they first started, they were like a secret organization, and how they would reply is that, oh, I know nothing. Bruh. The irony. So, anyways, yeah, this is their flag. Native Americans beware of foreign influence. Alright. So, let's see how these guys break it all down. Here's their party platform. They want to limit immigration, especially from Catholic countries, because like we said, they hate the Irish, they hate the Germans. Alright, government officials at all levels must only be native-born citizens, so they don't want any immigrant officials whatsoever in government. At all, not even at a local level. Naturalization should only be allowed after a continued residence of 21 years, and never an option for the poor or criminals. Bruh, with those kind of restrictions, they essentially want no immigrants to become citizens. Because, okay, granted, you're not a criminal, and more than likely you're probably poor. Immigrants came to this country, a good chunk of them came to this country with nothing, and were relegated to like cheap factory jobs, to where they were always kept poor. So that's like one strike against them. Then you tack on this whole, you gotta be in the country for 21 years? Dude, this is just nuts. But yeah, that's what the Know Nothing Party wants. They also want to restrict public school teachers to being Protestant. They don't want no Catholic influence in public schools. Jeez. Okay. And then they oppose any union between church and state. Alright, yet they want the government to restrict people from teaching public school if they're not Protestant. Wow. Okay. The walking contradiction here. Anyways. Yeah, that is the Know Nothing Party, and I want to point out a political cartoon to you guys. That top one right there. You see how it says anti-Catholic, anti-Irish political cartoon? It's making fun of both the Irish and the Germans, because look at what's on the barrel. It says Irish whiskey. Poking fun at the whole, stereotype that the Irish drink their whiskey. And then lager beer, pointing fun at the whole stereotype that Germans enjoy their beer. And what they're running away with, what they've just stolen, is the ballot box. So this is like basically saying that these immigrants steal votes, they steal elections. Lord. See, guys, that argument is an old one. It's been around forever. Let's blame immigrants for everything, according to nativists. Okay, nativism has been around for a very long time. It's not just a current phenomena that we see. It's been around. Same arguments. Because of jobs. Lord. Okay. Alright, we triggered now, guys? Jeez. Okay. Let's get to the election. Alright. So, here's how the vote splits. And look at the freaking scary thing right here. That Know Nothing Party got 22% of the popular vote. Holy crap, they swung the election. They swung the election. Whoa. Ugh. Oh, yeah, we're close to civil war. We are so freaking divided. And you can see there, look at the electoral college right there. Yeah, the Republican support is up north. The Democrat support's down south. I mean, dude, sectionalism is strong at this time. We headed to civil war. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Alright, let's go ahead and break down Buchanan's presidency. Because he sure as hell don't stop the Civil War. Okay. let's have about this. So Buchanan's presidency is short-lived. This guy is a one-term president. Much like his predecessor Pierce, you know, Zachary Taylor died in office, Fillmore didn't even run for that second term. I mean, just one-term presidents, okay? So, it's not a new thing, guys, trust me. Alright. Here's what happens during Buchanan's presidency. Key events will be the Dred Scott decision, Lincoln-Douglas debates, John Brown's raid in Harper's Ferry, you know, and then in 1860 we've got the election and Abraham Lincoln's elected. And subsequently, the Confederacy will be formed and, yeah, Civil War, okay? That's all going to go down these next, like, 5-ish years. So, Buchanan's presidency, though, he didn't really do much to stop it. I mean, this guy is like, yeah, the Lecompton Constitution in Kansas, your pro-slavery constitution, we accept you. He didn't even go with what the popular vote was, and the popular vote was to have Kansas be free. So, Lord, that's already one thing against him right there. Going against the wishes of the people of Kansas. Okay. Congress, though, rejects him pushing, you know, the Lecompton Constitution as legit. Because a lot of senators are going to reject it, including Stephen Douglas. Because, remember, popular sovereignty is his thing. And the people did not want the Lecompton Constitution. Okay, next big blunder that we have during Buchanan's presidency is actually a Supreme Court blunder. Probably one of the worst decisions they've ever made. The Dred Scott decision. Now let's go with this. So Dred Scott was a slave, alright? He was taken by his master into a free portion of that Louisiana territory. So you would think, you know, yeah, this dude's in a free area, he should be free, right? Okay. So it's a bit more complicated. His master dies. And so Dred Scott is like, well, shouldn't I be free? This is free territory. Come on now. He feels that, you know, he has the right to address the court and whatnot. The Missouri Supreme Court, well, the Missouri court rejected his argument, but the abolitionists get involved, and they're going to help to propel this thing to the Supreme Court. Okay. Here's what happens. The court is going to rule that since Dred Scott is a slave, he doesn't have the rights of free citizens to sue in federal court. Therefore, his case has been dismissed. Meaning, bro, you're a slave. You don't got no rights here. Case dismissed. You're not a person under the law. They just straight up told him that. Wow. So, Chief Justice Taney and other Southern sympathizers on the court are hoping that this ruling is going to be the end-all be-all. Be like, yeah, slavery's legal. Essentially, SCOTUS had just overturned the Missouri Compromise themselves. I mean, they thought it was a done issue. They also say that Dred Scott is property, not a person. So therefore, he was never free going into free territory. And he can never be a citizen. Yeah, that's the Supreme Court, guys. So, here's a picture of Dred Scott and Chief Justice Taney. The South is going to be like, hell yeah, Supreme Court, you got it right. The North is going to be like, what the hell, Supreme Court? You had your chance, you blew it. You could have done things right. So, they're going to come back with a vengeance on this. The Republican Party is really disgusted at what just went down with the Supreme Court in the Dred Scott decision. So, they're going to look for a superstar to try to lead them. And their dude is going to be Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. This is propelling us closer to war. Just saying. So, next up is the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Alright, Stephen Douglas running for the Senate. Abraham Lincoln, the challenger. Let's see who wins. So, this is a series of debates that happen on the campaign trail during this election in 1858. So, who ends up becoming victorious with the election is going to be Stephen Douglas. But what this does is propel Abraham Lincoln to the national spotlight, because people are kind of keeping their eyes on what's going on in Illinois. You know, Stephen Douglas has already made himself a national figure because of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and here's his challenger, Abraham Lincoln. We don't know much about him yet, but he impresses the hell out of us with his performance during these debates. So, they debate stuff like expanding slavery, who has the authority, to control slavery, Dred Scott decision, all that is being debated. And of course, Lincoln's going to be like, yeah, I oppose the expansion of slavery. Douglas is going to be like, well, the people should decide. So anyways, that's the whole big deal about this. Abraham Lincoln looks like a superstar. Even though he lost the election, he still looks awesome because of his responses and his participation in this debate against Stephen Douglas. So, Republicans now have their star for this next election. Meanwhile, John Brown has done something crazy. Okay, you guys see this before and after picture of John Brown? The before picture's on the bottom, alright? The after picture, what he looks like when he is going to raid Harper's Ferry, it's a picture on top. This dude looks like he snapped. Alright, this happens in 1859. John Brown, like we said, is one of these very militant abolitionists. And he's going to be like, you know what? Let's just steal some weapons from the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. Break into that army fort steal his weapons, give them to slaves so that they could lead their uprising. What's going to happen with this dude? Well, he's going to get caught. He gets caught by Colonel Robert E. Lee at that time and the forces that are there commanded by him. Of course, he's going to be tried for conspiracy, treason, murder. And he's found guilty, right? Because, I mean, come on, breaking into a federal fort to steal weapons to lead a slave uprising? Treason. Okay. So, he's hung, and, Southerners are going to be like, yeah, this dude is, like, freaking crazy. It's going to confirm their fears about any abolitionists. Alright. They already have these fears about Northerners being just like this anyways. Abolitionists, on the other hand, are going to be like, yeah, you go, John Brown. You be that martyr for the movement. That's how they view him. They view him as like a martyr for the movement. Maybe both are right. Maybe this guy is a martyr, but he was freaking crazy doing this. So, anyways, the damage is already done. I mean, we already see our ideas about this event being super split. And, you know, even like in the artistic portrayals of John Brown, you can see they're making him look like a Renaissance like saint, kind of like in this picture on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I mean, you see him like kissing this baby of like, we're only assuming is a slave right here. So I mean, yeah, they're totally making him look like a martyr, right? And so